Keanu Reeves steps into a lavish restaurant right in the heart of the city, dressed in simple, slightly wrinkled clothes, just as if he had come from an ordinary day. He selects a discreet table, attempting to remain unnoticed, while the shimmer of crystal chandeliers casts a warm glow across the room. But before he can even place an order, a waitress strides up to him, her expression laced with arrogance and a hint of disdain. "Are you sure you can afford to be here?" she sneers, her tone dripping with sarcasm, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. What happens next? It doesn't just leave the entire restaurant speechless, it uncovers a truth that no one saw coming. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow at 12:30 p.m., we have another special story waiting for you. Lumiere Restaurant, one of Beverly Hills' most prestigious dining spots, stood as a symbol of luxury and exclusivity. Its massive windows overlooked brightly lit streets, where expensive neon signs and high-end sports cars slowly cruised by. Inside, every single detail had been meticulously designed to impress. Lumiere wasn't just any restaurant, it was a place for those who wanted to be seen and admired. Ashley, one of the restaurant's most experienced waitresses, carried herself with unwavering confidence. Her impeccable uniform and neatly styled bun only reinforced her image of control and precision. Working at Lumiere wasn't just a job to her, it was a privilege, a status she proudly flaunted whenever the opportunity arose. But Ashley had another side to her, a sense of superiority that often blurred the line into arrogance. She had a habit of quickly sizing up customers, mentally classifying them based on their clothing, posture, and overall appearance. Some people just didn't belong here, she often thought. Then, the restaurant's elegant glass doors swung open, and in walked a man. His attire? A simple jacket, a plain shirt, and well-worn jeans, comfortable, but far from the high-end brands that Lumiere's usual clientele preferred. His presence was quiet, almost unnoticeable, as he made his way to the reception. Keanu Reeves had never been one to flaunt his wealth. Despite being one of Hollywood's most renowned stars, his demeanor was the complete opposite of the extravagance that surrounded Beverly Hills. In this moment, he appeared as nothing more than an ordinary customer. Ashley, who was deep in conversation at the reception desk about a VIP reservation, suddenly caught sight of him. She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes narrowing as she studied him with barely hidden disdain. He didn't resemble the type of customer they usually served at Lumiere. Without making any effort to hide her judgment, she tilted her head slightly, scanning him from head to toe. Her gaze lingered on his scuffed boots before she forced a dry, barely there smile. "Good evening," she greeted in a tone devoid of warmth. "How can I help you?" Keanu responded politely, his voice calm. "I'd like a table, please." Ashley arched an eyebrow, as if his request was the most absurd thing she'd heard all day. Her expression practically screamed, "How dare you?" Crossing her arms, she let her false smile drop entirely. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" she asked, her voice carrying an unmistakable edge. "This is a very exclusive restaurant." Still unfazed, Keanu maintained his gentle smile. "Yes, this is the place," he replied evenly. Ashley let out a short, disbelieving laugh, shaking her head. "Okay, just a moment. I need to check something." Turning on her heel, she walked off without another word, making no effort to mask her annoyance. She headed straight to the reservation system and typed in his name with an exaggerated flourish. When nothing popped up, she rolled her eyes and returned to the dining area, her irritation now palpable. "Well, as I expected," she said, her voice thick with sarcasm. "You don't have a reservation." She let out a small sigh before continuing. "We do have a few tables available, but just so you know, this isn't a casual dining spot." Keanu, still composed, simply nodded. "I'd still like to dine here." Ashley exhaled dramatically, grabbing a menu with an unnecessary amount of force. "All right, but I'll need to seat you in an appropriate area. Follow me." Without sparing him another glance, she strode through the restaurant, bypassing the luxurious central tables bathed in golden chandelier light. Instead, she led him straight to the most tucked-away, dimly lit corner, near the kitchen, where the clatter of dishes and muffled conversations created an atmosphere far removed from the rest of the establishment. "Here you go. This table should work for you," she said, carelessly placing the menu down with an audible thud. "I think you'll be comfortable here. It's more private." Keanu studied the table, then looked back at Ashley, his faint smile unwavering. "Thank you," he said in the same calm tone. She crossed her arms, narrowing her eyes as if trying to decipher whether he was mocking her or simply oblivious. "You're welcome," she replied, her voice dripping with insincerity. "Just so you know, we usually reserve these tables for special cases. But since we happen to have an opening tonight, you can have it." Without waiting for a response, she spun on her heel and walked away. As she returned to his table to take his order, her cruelty only intensified. With an exaggerated motion, she flipped open her notepad and cast a cold glance at him. "Have you decided what you want?" she asked, her voice laced with boredom. "Or would you like a recommendation?" Keanu glanced at the menu and pointed to one of the most expensive dishes. "I'd like to try this one." Ashley barely contained a laugh, covering her mouth as if struggling to hold back a snide remark. "Oh, of course," she said in a mocking tone. "The filet de Rossini. A classic choice." Then, her lips curled into a smirk. "Just to confirm, you do realize this dish costs $350, right?" Unbothered, Keanu nodded. "Yes, it sounds wonderful." Ashley tilted her head, her amusement evident. "All right then, just making sure there won't be any misunderstandings later. I'd hate for someone to be surprised when they see the check." Keanu remained as calm as ever. "I'm certain." Ashley sighed dramatically, scribbling down the order, as if doing him a favor. "Very well, as you wish. But just so you know, our chef prefers his dishes to be appreciated by those who actually understand fine dining. I hope it meets your expectations." With that, she turned sharply, only to pause and glance back over her shoulder. "Oh, and one more thing, the minimum tip here is 20%. Just something to keep in mind while you enjoy." Keanu simply smiled and nodded. As he waited, his composure remained unshaken. He glanced around the restaurant, admiring the decor and the soothing piano music. Across the room, Ashley kept a close eye on him, a smug expression on her face. "He won't last 5 minutes," she muttered to a coworker. "Just wait until he sees the bill." But little did she know, Keanu wasn't someone easily rattled. And soon, the entire restaurant would witness something that would turn the situation upside down. Ashley faltered for a split second, but quickly recovered, her smirk returning. "Oh, you know," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "It's not every day we get unconventional guests." A hush fell over the nearby tables. The tension in the air was palpable. Keanu took a slow sip of his coffee before setting the cup down gently. Then, with the same unshaken calm, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. "Well, I'd like to settle my bill now," he said, sliding the card toward Ashley. She barely glanced at it before scoffing. "You know, sir, we don't split bills here. If you're having trouble covering it, maybe." But then, she actually looked at the card. Her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't just any credit card. It was an elite black card, the kind reserved for the ultra-wealthy, for people who didn't just visit places like Lumiere, they owned them. Ashley swallowed hard. The blood drained from her face. Keanu smiled. "Something wrong?" Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up the card and hurried toward the register, suddenly aware of the many eyes watching her. Meanwhile, the elderly man in the navy blue suit leaned back in his chair, sipping his wine with a knowing smile. The couple who had been observing exchanged glances, the woman shaking her head in disbelief. Ashley returned a moment later, her previous arrogance completely evaporated. Your payment has been approved, sir," she stammered, placing the receipt on the table with noticeably more respect. Keanu signed it effortlessly, then added something extra, a tip so generous that Ashley's eyes nearly popped out of her head. "One last thing," Keanu said, standing up. His voice was still gentle, but this time it carried undeniable authority. "It's always interesting to see different kinds of service. With that, he turned and walked toward the exit, nodding politely to the elderly man and the couple as he passed.